Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you here today. Hope you've had a good week. Appreciate it if you would. Again, I know you hear it every day and maybe you get tired of it, but it matters. If you would, like, share, comment on the post, and then if you would you can follow along in a couple of quick verses here in 1 Thessalonians chapter 4, beginning in verse number 9. Paul says this, "Now concerning brotherly love, you have no need for anyone to write to you, for you yourselves have been taught by God to love one another. For that indeed is what you are doing to all the brothers throughout Macedonia. But we urge you, brothers, to do this more and more." Well, if we took those two verses in a vacuum, that sounds great. Paul has said to the church here, you are really just knocking it out of the park when it comes to loving each other. In fact, you're loving everybody. You're loving all the brothers throughout Macedonia, and so he says, you're just killing it in that area. The problem was. That I don't mean to. I'm going to go ahead. They were loving too many people. If you look, he spends 5 verses talking to them about sexual immorality. And so, again, if we could take verse 9 and 10 and say, well, the Thessalonican church were just really supporting, loving each other, that was great. But the problem is, if we take the previous three chapters or so, and we see that they have a real problem with gossiping. They have a problem with immorality, and so it'd be great if those verses were missing. But it's good that they're loving everybody, that they're supporting each other, but there's still some issues here. And he says, I don't even need to talk to you about this. He says, the only thing I'm going to tell you is do this more. And as I thought about that a little bit, well, if they were loving each other more and exercising brotherly love the way they should, then they wouldn't be gossiping about each other, and they wouldn't be backbiting about each other, and they wouldn't be sleeping with each other's spouses. But Paul says, instead, let's clean it up. Let's do better. It's great that you love one another, but that doesn't override all the things you're doing bad. And so we urge you to do this more and more, to keep on walking in the faith, to keep on loving each other. And it's really, if you sit down today and read all the epistles, Galatians, Ephesians, if you read all the epistles, you'd find out this is a rare statement. Most of the churches were, as the old saying goes, fighting like cats and dogs. But the church at Thessalonica, Paul is bragging on them for the way they are loving each other and the way they are they're treating each other and showing brotherly love. But that wasn't common among the churches. But for Thessalonica, they've got it. They're loving each other, but that doesn't mean that they can be excused for their other sins. And that alone is a good reminder for us. A lot of people think, well, just to use an example, if I put enough money in the offering plate, that makes up for the fact that I don't do this. Or if I sing in the choir, that makes up for that. No, that's not the way it works. Paul says, I'm proud of you for the way you're loving each other, but doesn't mean I'm not going to spend 3 chapters writing to you about the things you need to clean up. And so I think these passages encourage us in 2 ways. One of them is to make sure we're loving each other, being good to each other. Remind you that the Bible tells us that the world will know that we love God by how we love each other. But then to take a good hard look in the mirror and make sure that there's not some areas in our life that need cleaning up. Again, Paul says you're doing a great job with brotherly love, but there are some areas that need to be improved, and even the way you're loving each other, your brotherly love, keep it up. Keep it up. And so it's something to think about today as we look in the mirror. Let's not try to overlook the areas that need improvement. To use a sports analogy, most of you know I like sports. I know some of you don't, but most of you are familiar with the game of baseball. If you've got a ball player, you got a baseball player, and he just, everything they pitch at him, he hits, knocks it out of the park, gets a home run every time he comes up. But when he goes out to play defense, he couldn't catch a cold. Every time they hit a ball near him, it rolls between his legs. That won't work. You'll never be a superstar baseball player unless you play on both sides, offense and defense. And as Christians, we need to look at our whole game, at our whole life, and make sure that God is pleased with it all. You think about that. Have a great day. We'll see you here tomorrow morning.